The sheer amount of options Orcs and Goblins have available to them kind of make them overwhelming when you're new to the faction, which is a bit ironic considering your average Orc probably has as much intellectual depth as your overly political uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Probably has better etiquette though. Like my other guides, this video will help you build an Orcs and Goblins list for an escalation environment. Meaning we're going to start at 500 points and grow the list up to 2000 points at 500 point intervals. Once a unit is added to your list, it cannot be removed from your list. Meaning if at 500 points you have 2 units of orc mobs, at 2000 points you must have at least 2 units of orc mobs. You can of course change the loadout of the unit, change the number of models in the unit, but the unit must remain. Same goes for heroes, but you can upgrade them, downgrade them, put them on a mount, take them on a mount, etc. So if at 500 points you run an Orc Big Boss on foot, at 2000 points you can make him an Orc War Boss on a Wyvern. These lists are made with the base levels of rules in mind. That means no battle march rules, no match play rules, etc. Just what's in the base book, plus maybe the arcane journals depending on the list. I do this so the lists are accessible to the most amount of people. That being said, I do think the match play guidelines and even the battle march rule set kinda enhance the game. So if you have a group that has access to those rules, I suggest you use them. It shouldn't be very hard to adapt these lists to any additional restrictions these rule sets might impose. Finally, these lists are made with an escalation league in mind, meaning we're not in the most competitive environment. I'm not looking to make a tournament list with these orcs. So while I'm not looking to min-max this list to hell and back, I do want it to be semi-competitive, while still being good for new players, show all aspects of the game, be true to the lore of the faction, and showcase a lot of the amazing models that people might want to paint for an escalation league. Starting with this 500 point list. And something to keep in mind before I really dig into this list is that Orcs and Goblins are the default horde army for Warhammer the Old World as far as supported factions go. At 500 points, we're already fielding 46 models and it's only going to grow from here. So if you're growing this list alongside your league and trying to get everything painted week after week after week, unit fillers are going to be your friend. If you are new to Warhammer and don't know what that means, just Google Orcs and Goblins unit filler and you'll get plenty of good ideas on the subject. The other thing I'll mention is that a lot of Orcs and Goblin units are enabled by having certain heroes or characters in your army, and that means you're probably going to have more characters than your opponent, which is just something to keep in mind as you plan and build out this army. You'll have to either kit bash or pay the extra expense for these various hero units. But now let's actually get into the list building, and the nice thing about greenskins is they're so cheap, it's easy to build a fun, diverse list at 500 points. To start with this list, our general is going to be an Orc Big Boss, and we're going to put him on a boar so we can run with our other mounted units. And because we have the point room, we're going to give them all spears so they're extra deadly on the charge. This is going to be our killing unit at 500 points and a strong unit through all of our lists. For a mage, we're going to use the Night Goblin Oddgits rather than any of the Orc mages, simply because this will enable us to use other Night Goblin units. We're going to use Waaagh magic through this whole entire list because it's a very offensive spell lore, which I think fits Orcs and Goblins both thematically and how they play best on the tabletop. Very offensive. In our core, we're going to run one group of Night Goblin mobs. Don't expect them to do a lot for you in combat. Instead, think of them as basically a delivery service for your Goblin fanatics. Even though they were recently nerfed, and even though things can go horribly wrong and they smash through your own units, Goblin fanatics are one of the best sources of damage in the game. And many competitive lists are built around getting as much fanatics on the table as possible. We're not doing that here. That can be very frustrating to play against, but fanatics still make up an important part of our army. Just be careful not to risk them for nothing. Sometimes it's better to have the threat of the fanatic than actually using it. For our second core unit, we're utilizing an Orc mob. I'm using hand weapons here. I don't have a lot of range in this list, but if you want to use bows instead, feel free. It's a free upgrade. But for the list, how I envision it, these Orc mobs are going to be the anvil for which your boar riders can hammer into. For the last unit in this 500 point list, we have our actual boar riders. I feel strongly that even after the 1.5 rule set update, mobility is king in Warhammer the Old World, so I always like a good mounted unit, and I always feel like they're worth investing into. At higher point levels, we will invest in this unit to make them a little beefier and a little better at sustained combat. But for now, we're just paying for the spears and trying to make them deadly on the charge. Your biggest weakness at this point level is your low leadership and your impetuous special rule. Your line is very unstable at this point level if you have some bad dice rolls. And we are going to spend most of our 1,000 point list trying to shore up that weakness. At 1,000 points, we're bringing in a Black Orc Warboss, both for his higher leadership values and because of his special rule to help quell that impetuousness. Our Orc Big Boss is now demoted to be our BSB, and we're going to give him the War Banner because at 25 points, it's one of the most efficient banners of the game, and it's going to help make your boars very deadly. On our Goblin Wizard, I'm sacrificing a magic level in order to put the Idol of Gork on him. And my reasoning is, at 1,000 points, the places where you need your magic to work gets a little bit bigger. Plus, he's only a goblin. We're not going to put him in a unit. He's on foot. And the proper positioning is very important. And having that extra range gives you a little bit more leeway to help keep this wizard safe, but still be useful where you need him. But if you feel like positioning is not going to be an issue for you, I would probably drop the idol for another level. To our core, we added a Black Orc mob. We want to keep this unit a little bit behind our main line and basically use it to countercharge our opponent. Your instinct will probably be to put your Black Orc Warboss in this unit, and that's not necessarily wrong, but that also means your entire aura is just focused in one area, where if you keep them separate or even run the War Boss with the Orc mob, the aura around our Quell impetuousness is quite a bit bigger. I should also point out that this unit has the Motley Crew rule, which means they can have different loadouts inside the unit. And the math has been done on this. It is clearly better to run a mixed unit of shields and great weapons than what I have here. But I personally feel that this can become very tedious in games, separating out the dice rolls. Plus, these lists are often aimed towards new players, so I didn't want to bring in that level of complexity to this list. To our boar riders, we've added the Biggins rule, and we've given them heavy armor for a little bit more durability and a little bit better rolls in sustained combat. Which brings us to our last new unit for this level, the Doom Diver Catapult. A Doom Diver is one of the best artillery pieces in the old world, and for most of your orc list, you're probably going to run at least one of these. It's more accurate than any of the other stone thrower type artillery pieces because you have more agency of where your scatter happens. This makes the Doom Diver better than other catapults at hitting smaller, more elite units, but I still think they're best served throwing into large groups of infantry. 1,500 points is generally when you start seeing heroes mounted on large fantastical mounts, so we have to make sure we answer in kind. Hence why a lot of this update is going into our Black Orc Warboss on a Wyvern. Giving him the choppiest choppa because it's the funnest named weapon in the game and is insanely efficient for the point cost. And for a defensive item, we're giving him the Talisman of Protection. If you're playing against more highly powered lists, I would try to find the 10 points to give him the Troll High Trousers instead because it is the better defensive item, but this will work for most situations in an escalation league. Our big boss, which has been with us from the very beginning, he's still our BSB, but now we gave him the Banner of Butchery because I wanted to give the War Banner to the Black Orc mob and make it a bigger problem for your opponent. The idea is to sell out completely on the charge with these boar boys and make them hit as hard as humanly possible. Your opponent will be upgrading their mages, so we're just trying to keep up here. Our odd get now becomes an odd knob at a level 3. The trade-off is, with this upgrade, I feel like we can't afford the Idol of Gork anymore, at least at 1,500 points, so we just have to be very careful with our positioning. For the rest of this list, we're getting a bit more zany and a little bit more random, which I think is the way to go for a good, fun Orcs and Goblins list. It's all squigs from here on out. First, we add the squig hoppers at just 90 points. These can be an incredibly good unit, but can also be an incredibly frustrating unit. Their movement is a 3d6, which means the most likely outcome for these every time they move is somewhere between 9 and 12 inches. But unfortunately, just like my wife, you may be dealing with only 3 inches, or you might get lucky and have as much as 18 inches. When the dice are in your favor, this unit is great at side charges, rear charges, or really chasing down anything that has low armor that you can attack with them, such as archers or enemy artillery. But when the dice are against you, they can probably cost you the game. Always have a backup plan when you use these, but for 90 points, I think they're worth having in this list. And even if I was playing competitively, I would consider bringing squig hoppers. With that same mindset, for our last unit, we're bringing in a behemoth unit, our Mangler squigs. Just like our squig hoppers, these units move randomly, but unlike the squig hoppers, they move randomly in any direction. They could go 18 inches forward, they could go 18 inches backwards into your own line. So do keep that in mind when you make your deployments. And also keep in mind the special rule timber. These things, if you're unlucky, can cause a lot of damage to your own troops. These behemoths are surprisingly squishy, and don't be surprised if you see them shot off the table quite a bit, but that's okay. It's only a 95 point investment, and if we can force your opponent to focus on this for a turn, or if we're lucky 2 turns, that's more than enough to feel like we got our value out of this unit. And just a quick tip in case you're making this unit on a budget, the physical height of a model doesn't matter, only base size. This isn't 40k. So if you're using the official GW kit, you can split those squigs up onto 2 bases and have 2 units instead of 1 and save yourself $100. Or watch my other Orcs and Greenskin video and get some third-party options and you get a much cheaper unit. It's not like I care. GW is never going to sponsor my content anyways. I'd rather see people playing with knockoffs than not playing at all because they can't afford it. Which is an awkward rant to transition to a 2,000 point list, but let's transition into our 2,000 point list. Which is so large, I no longer have room for a copyrighted image to the right. Remember what I said before, unit fillers are your friends when it comes to Orcs and Goblins. For a new character and for a little bit of fun, I added a Night Goblin Big Boss with the Wallopers one-hit wonder, aka the Warhammer Fantasy version of a suicide bomber. It's squishy and it also suffers from random movement, but if you're allowed to make contact with something you charge, you can wipe them out in one combat, meaning you can trade a much more expensive unit for this one. And even if you don't hit pay dirt with this unit, your opponent will have to focus on it or suffer the consequences. So it's a fair trade if he's focusing on this unit, trying to shoot it off the table because it leaves your other units unabated. The rest of our characters just get buffed up a little bit. Our Orc Big Boss now gets a better flag, and the Troll High Trousers for a little bit more survivability. I chose to give our mage the Idol of Gork rather than making him level 4 for reasons I explained before. I just like the added range considering he's stuck on foot. Our core units just get uniformly buffed all around. We now have 30 fanatics. We now have 30 Night Goblins for the maximum amount of fanatics, and we're also giving them netters to make them as annoying for your opponent as possible. Elsewhere, we're also adding bodies to both our regular orcs and our black orcs. For our last new unit, we're adding some stone trolls here. I don't necessarily think they're the most efficient or best unit to add at this point, but it was a goal to have all of the different races of the orc tribes represented in this list, and so I had to add in trolls at some point, and in my opinion this is my favorite troll unit. And to be frank, their ability to throw stones is a little nice here because I don't have a lot of other ranged options in this list. Even though I'm only bringing 3 of them, they are still very durable and they make for a very solid anchor for either the left or right side of your line. And that's about it. This list definitely relies on some dice rolls, but I don't think that's the wrong way to go when it comes to Orcs and Goblins. They just have more randomness baked in than other factions do. Sometimes the dice bless you and sometimes they don't. Really, if you're playing Orcs and Goblins, you should be ready to just laugh when things don't go your way. As always, thanks for watching. I know I get some requests in these videos. I know a lot of people want me to do high elves. I'm honestly still a little bit elfed out from the dark elf list, but I promise the high elves are coming. I also really want to take a stab at the new Border Princes list. I'm really excited to get my hands on that arcane journal.